The national quality standards are designed to ensure high quality education and care for children, as they set a national benchmark for the quality of services. Regulatory authorities assess and rate early childhood services against the national quality standards and provide them with the rating for each quality area and an overall rating based on the results. The national quality standards were developed from the philosophical and theoretical base of the Early Years Learning Framework. Key ideas and elements from the Early Years Learning Framework, such as pedagogical principles, practices, and learning outcomes, underpin quality early learning experiences and consequently the standards in the National Quality Standards. The National Quality Standards and Early Years Learning Framework support educators to make decisions and provide them with clear expectations and guidelines, which results in increased confidence and direction for staff. The standards consist of 7 quality areas, which play a significant role in outcomes for children. Within this presentation, we will explore in detail Quality Area 6, Collaborative Partnerships with Families and Communities. Quality Area 6 focuses on supportive, respectful relationships with families and communities, which are fundamental to achieving quality outcomes for children. Collaborative partnerships exist when both educators, parents, carers, and families build a partnership on mutual respect and trust, share information, and integrate family and educator beliefs and wisdom. This includes communicating openly, acknowledging educators' and families' expertise, and respecting diversity. Partnerships between people in children's lives enable a two-way flow of information, which allows educators to construct curriculum that is equitable, engaging, and relevant to the children, families, and their communities, and supports continuity of learning. As well as being a quality area in the National Quality Standards, partnerships are also incorporated in other education documents, including the Early Years Learning Framework, where it is a second principle, as well as being identified as a strategy to increase student engagement and achievement in the Melbourne Declaration on Educational Goals for Young Australians.
Children and families are often mentioned together throughout key literature, demonstrating their importance within the context of early childhood education. Building strong partnerships with families reinforces the importance of transformative relationships that occur within the early learning environment. According to experts, building strong relationships and working with families is an important part of the role of an educator, with these close relationships between the home and the learning environment having an important impact on children in care of all ages. For these relationships to flourish, educators need to work with and maintain collaborative partnerships with families. Beginning from enrolment, it is critical for families to play an active role within a service. Authentic engagement allows for families to contribute valuable information that acknowledges the shared responsibility for young children and their early education. From the enrolment process to settling children and ultimately leading to contributions to quality education and care, partnerships between services and families provide an opportunity for families to not only become familiar with educators, but fosters open communication between educators and families. A service dedicated to quality education and care supports family engagement through many different ways. At Habitat Early Learning in Brisbane, educators are responsive to family concerns, with families encouraged to join the Parent Advisory Group and attend regular events promoting literacy skills such as Book Week or social and emotional well-being with Mother's Day, Father's Day and Christmas. At Habitat, parents are able to contribute to service decisions in different ways. Some of our parents that attend PAG meetings are involved in intermittent policy reviews, for example. We also encourage families to complete surveys on our service at different stages of their time with us at Habitat, after enrolment and after terminating, for example. Louise from Habitat Early Learning notes some improvements made to the service through such collaborations, such as the inclusion and implementation of an immunisation policy and changes made to the annual Christmas concert.
Earth is covered by a diverse range of families. Some examples of diversity that may be in our early childhood settings include different life experiences, family compositions, languages, interests, beliefs, and abilities. Effective educators need to view the diversity of families in their centre as a positive, as opposed to a negative, so that children and families develop a sense of belonging. In order to avoid a discomfort for families who view their culture, beliefs, interests, and languages are not being valued in the centre, educators need to develop a competency for their families. Such competency was heavily demonstrated at Bridge Road Kindergarten in Melton, where I interviewed Debbie Muir, the head director. She commented, "We have families who have come from a variety of places. We have families who are divorced and families who have parents of the same sex. To encourage this sense of belonging, we implement a communication board where parents can offer their ideas for the classroom and pick up any useful material they may need. We represent the different nationalities of families by placing the different flags at the entrance of the building. And weekly, we highlight the family's nationality one by one by pointing out the country on the class globe and having a class discussion of the different customs those cultures have." Issues that may arise when teaching a classroom that is diverse is the misunderstanding that a parent may not be interested in his or her child's education due to a lack of communication. These issues may arise because of the cultural differences such as language barriers. At times, families may feel reluctant to disclose information to educators. This may be due to the different life circumstances that they have had to face, for the fear of being judged as a bad parent. Some parents may find it difficult to find the time to participate in the child's education, resulting in educators finding it difficult to make their environment more comfortable for that said child. This may be due to work and/or other family commitments. At these times, it may be appropriate as an educator to become more flexible, finding and offering support services that are available to assist families to feel more like they belong, so they can have a say in their child's education.
For many families, the initial meeting at the early childhood educational setting can be foreign and uncertain, as they may be uninformed and nervous about leaving their child in the care of strangers. To support families and establish trust, it is the responsibility of the leader and educator to ensure authentic and genuine communication that is tailored to the individual needs of the child and family. An initial orientation of the service is vital in ensuring families are provided with the information they need and want to assist their child's positive and active participation with the service. Early intervention for children commonly occurs within the early childhood setting, and it is therefore important for early childhood leaders and educators to be informed of available community resources. An integrated services model is effective for both the child and families, as professional services work collaboratively in the best interest of all. Intentional leaders of early childhood settings will proactively form partnerships to establish an integrated service model. Partnerships typically include professionals from education, health and social services, including early childhood educators, maternal child health, occupational health, psychologists, and programs to assist and support families emotionally and financially. Support for families include welcome letters and information packs provided to families prior to the commencement of the school year, information available for early intervention, community and support services for financial assistance, mental health, domestic abuse, substance abuse and so on. Smiles for Miles, a Victorian state government program that assists at-risk families to improve their dental hygiene. Kindergarten Inclusion Support Program, KISS, a Victorian state government program that provides children with a disability funding for a learning support officer to assist the child's development during the early years. It is important to note that parents or caregivers of young children, particularly those at risk, may feel uncomfortable to approach early childhood educators and leaders for help. The relationship that is formed between educators and families is vital in creating an environment where families and caregivers feel they can ask for support. So the issue is, if educators and leaders are not confident to build relationships, this may impact negatively on the well-being of both the child and the family. The ability to form relationships is a crucial element in early childhood education. In an educational setting, transitions may affect the continuity of learning either negatively or positively, and therefore affect the child's social, emotional and educational outcome. It is therefore very relevant and important as leaders and educators that we are responsible for transitions that are supportive and positive. Transitions built around mutually respectful relationships between the child, educators, families and community. Transitions may include from home to the early childhood place, movements within the varied settings of the early childhood place, and from the early childhood place to primary school. To facilitate smooth and positive transitions and prepare children and parents, educators and leaders must share relevant and reliable information with the children, families and primary educators. Through informed relationships with families and the child, educators create a bank of knowledge about the child, their interests, experiences and abilities. When informed, educators have the ability to create experiences that the child can relate to and feel comfortable and confident with. A major transition for both child and family alike is that from the early childhood learning setting to primary school. The Australian Government Department of Education, in partnership with Dockett and Perry, have designed a resource named Continuity of Learning, a resource to support effective transition to school and school-age care. This document assists both early childhood and primary school educators support smooth transitions by providing tools and information to support the child, families and educators. A great example of supported transitions is a current partnership between a primary school and kindergarten. Grade 5 students from a local primary school visit the kindergarten weekly and read their favourite books to the younger children. The goal for the primary school children is to improve their reading skills and to gain confidence. The goal for the kindergarten children is to be exposed to literacy more and in a different context. The kindergarten children also visit the primary school regularly, which helps them adapt to the school setting, and furthermore, it will assist with their final transitions to primary school. An issue that may arise for young children when transitioning from home to the early childhood setting is that of difference in experiences and interests, particularly when varied cultural groups are present in one educational setting. As educators and especially leaders, we must ensure we are familiar with the child's interests and experiences and respectfully include these within the educational program. This alleviates possible marginalisation of the child.
The partnerships educators form with individual children and their families and the inclusive practices implemented by educators directly influence access, participation and success in learning for every child. Educators' beliefs and values about inclusion contribute to the application of inclusive practices. Children thrive when families, educators and the local community work together in a partnership to support access, inclusion and participation. Educators can support access, participation and inclusion in the program for children by learning about their individual context, which includes their family, circumstances, geographic location, cultural and linguistic experiences, and their interests, strengths, and learning styles. This knowledge is formed from communication with families and spending time getting to know each child. It is the responsibility of educators and leaders to use this knowledge of each child to design the physical environment, curriculum, routines and transitions, and ensure there are no barriers to children's access and participation in the program. This practice is evident at Iris Ramsey Kindergarten, as they recognised there were several children in their care whose families could not provide adequate food for them. This informed educators to implement a breakfast club into the morning routine to include toast and/or fruit to children who have not eaten breakfast and those who do not have lunch provided. Providing children with food allows them to participate in meal times with their peers and results in them feeling supported and included in the learning environment. An issue frequently encountered by educators in regards to partnerships is set viewpoints or ways of thinking. Different people have diverse ways of thinking, as people often look at the same situation and see very different things. Failing to acknowledge a variation in viewpoints often results in solutions being offered that do not meet everybody's needs, as they have not fully understood those needs. When dealing with this situation as an educator, it is important to begin by asking ourselves how the other person sees the situation and why. Once we understand and acknowledge these differences, we open up many more options for bringing together different approaches or working through disagreements to reach solutions which take everybody's view into account.
Supporting children and families' sense of belonging within a service also means providing appropriate, responsive and respectful connections from the community. Connections with various organisations throughout the community allow for early education services to provide families with appropriate practical and emotional support, essential for those feeling isolated and unable to seek assistance. Research indicates that including community engagement within a service improves family function and the children's well-being through enabling early identification of problems. A service dedicated to quality education and care provides families with ongoing support responsive to the needs of the children in the service. Community engagement such as transition to school programs, charities and involvement in aged care facilities are examples of ways a service can engage with the community. These connections help children in the service to gain a deeper understanding of diversity and culture within the wider community, as well as fostering social well-being and strengthening partnerships. When it comes to community engagement, there are some challenges that may arise. An example of this is for services to assume that participating in community engagement has to be on a large scale. However, small links within the community still help to foster relationships and build on children's sense of well-being within the wider community.
The importance of Quality Area 6 within the National Quality Standards and in its application in early childhood education and care services cannot be stressed enough. If quality outcomes for children are the goal of early childhood education and care, then attention must be paid to our children's families. Element 6.1 seeks to guide educators to engage in supportive relationships with families. Educators have a professional responsibility, as outlined in the Early Childhood Australia Code of Ethics, to listen to and learn from families and build upon their strengths, developing relationships based on mutual trust and open communication. Element 6.2, Collaborative Partnerships, encourages educators to recognise that children and families live within a community context. Community partnerships support children's inclusion, learning and well-being through early intervention, celebrations of diversity and identity formation. Community partnerships are also a resource that educators should share with families to ensure their well-being and to support them in their primary role of nurturing their children. Teams of educators should participate in critical reflection that considers how they support families to feel welcome, respected, empowered and supported, as well as how they establish and maintain community partnerships. So please, as future early childhood teachers, please advocate for our children, their families and our communities by listening to them, supporting them and learning with them.